cheerleading section over there. Except they're kind of spread out into a couple of tables because we didn't have room for everybody. I guess I need to put my notes on. I just wanted to first say I am so excited that we are finally doing this. I know some of you, we've tried to get women together, do these women events, and weren't able to do it. We did the Appetite for Friendship, which was great 2 or 3 years ago. So this is so very near and dear to my heart. I just love when women can come together. I love food, fun, and fellowship. So this is exciting for me. You know, when we're at church, it's really hard to really get to know people because you're just going through the foyer or, inside. And so I just think this is very, very necessary for us. And then, like he said, we're going to be doing the disciplines that we're talking about. And so tonight, I'm talking on the disciplines of community and service. And I thought about how the best way for me to talk about this, and as I was going through it with the Lord, I determined that, I'm just going to have to kind of give my testimony and how community saved my life and how serving has really turned my pain into purpose, I guess you would say. So, I wanted to ask everybody just to think for a moment, have you ever been at church and surrounded by all these people and just felt all alone? I mean, raise your hand if you've ever felt alone in church. Yes, that was me. God never intended us to be alone. He always meant for us to be in community together. So October 26, 2015 was a day that I will never forget. I was meeting with Pastor Rob and Miss Karen because I was finally letting somebody have a glimpse into my life that I had never done before. And so through that, I met with them and I said, I don't know what to do. I mean, I know what to do, but I don't know. I need steps. And that's why I was like, I need steps. Can you just give me steps? And I was like, just tell me 1, 2, 3, whatever I need to do. And they said, you need to go home. You need to get your kids. You need to leave your home. You need to go to your parents' house because you can trust them and they love you. And you need to get a restraining order. And I left that meeting in fear and trembling. I was nauseated at the decision I was about to make. But I did it. I got home, started packing up my kids, and I remember my daughter said, can you check to see where he's at? And I said, let me check. And it was early, so he shouldn't have been coming home, but he was. He was a few minutes from our house. And I mean, panic filled the room. We just threw ourselves in the car and left, and just left all of our stuff. And we went opposite direction, home to my parents' house, all the back roads, got there, got safe. And I say that to say that it wasn't because I was brave at that moment, but I had let somebody into my life and a glimpse in. And I knew that when you let somebody in, it keeps you accountable. And so I just thought that was really important for me to move forward. And so we are never meant to walk this life alone. We need godly community. And the first step sometimes is letting someone in. And so for me, courage came when I stopped isolating myself and I stepped into godly community. And so that's what I really want to share with you tonight, is on godly community. And so think about one place in your life where you've been carrying more than you were meant to carry alone. And just think about that for a moment. I'm sure we all have something that is popping in our head. I know for me, for 25 years, I lived in silence. I didn't let people into my world. No one knew what was happening in our home behind closed doors. I mean, not even our families. My mom even said, wow, you have such a great poker face, because they had no idea. And we just put up the front for everybody. And so, I mean, I grew up in the church. My whole life, I've always gone to church regularly. But for me, when I came to Destiny, something just changed. I mean, I learned that my relationship with God was not meant to be private. It was meant to be shared with other people. And because once you are in a godly community, light begins to dispel the darkness that's in your life. And that's what started happening for me. So at first, I wasn't sure about attending small groups, but eventually I stepped out and gave it a try. And it was really uncomfortable. Anybody ever been uncomfortable going to a small group for the first time? That was really hard. But I kept doing it. And I think that's what's really important, is it's being persistent, it's being determined. I wanted community. I wanted people in my life. I knew I desperately needed that. And so I just had to trust God to bring the right people at the right time. And He did. And over time, God began to break down the walls in my life. And I started hearing other women's stories and hearing their heart. And I just think that's really important, because that's what, to me, community is. That's what small group is it's hearing other people's stories and their hearts, and so that you can share and they can share. And so it changed something inside of me. I realized I wasn't the only one struggling. I wasn't the only one hurting. And I could start trusting people again. And that made all the difference in the world for me in that moment. And then, so that when that moment came, I could make a decision that was extremely difficult. But I did it because I had people in my life now. And so community begins with a willingness to admit we need something more. And without that, it's easy to remain isolated even when we don't want to be. Community doesn't just connect us, it can even heal us. Healing often begins when we stop trying to carry things alone and allow others to walk with us. When I joined my first freedom group forever ago, I think it was in 2016, when I joined my first freedom group, I didn't share really at all. I just kind of sat there. I had just left that situation. I wasn't about to share my personal stuff. But I did grow, and I learned through that small group. And one of the things that hit me in that one was the leader shared something so personal. And I thought, oh my gosh. And there was another, and what was crazy about it is that the Lord had prompted her to share this very personal thing that she was going through. And because of that, another lady spoke up, who's going through the same thing. And I was like, oh wow, and then what was incredible about it is you started seeing transformation taking place right there, healing happening. And I just thought it was so amazing. And that freedom leader went on to walk with that participant that came through with all the struggles and experience, and found healing and restoration in her marriage. And they're still married today. And it's just, it could have been really bad, but it ended up being so good because somebody stepped up, told what they were going through, and then somebody else was able to share theirs. And so I knew I wanted that. I wanted the healing, and I wanted freedom. So healing began because there was a safe space for that lady. And so one person's willingness to share made it easier for others to open up. So we always say in our small groups, I'm sure any of you that are leaders, what's said in here stays in here. And that is so important for us to say in our groups so that people know they have a safe space. And that's what happened with that lady. And so growth really happened for me when I started opening up in small groups. It also helped me to grow deeper in my walk with the Lord, and that's what brought the healing to my life. John Mark Comer said in his book, Practicing the Way, our deepest wounds come from relationships, and yet so does our deepest healing. It's in relationships that we are formed and forged. So community shows up, especially when we're most vulnerable. This was true for my family during a very difficult time. The church rallied around us, and it was really incredible. We had a fall festival, and I remember we were supposed to be serving, but because Pastor Rob and the church, the team knew what was going on, they were able to protect us so that we could still participate in the fall festival, because of course he did show up. But anyway, that's okay. He got escorted out. So that was good. And so the other day, I watched this really neat interview with Frances Chan and Joni Eareckson Tada. And in it, she said, community occurs organically around weakness. So in 1 Corinthians 12, the weaker members are indispensable. Why? And she said, because their needs moves the heart of people, and they help in some degree, great or small. And when they meet that need, it brings joy. It's the joy that helps form organically the season of community. The sense of community. And so when in our small groups, you can meet the needs inside your small group. Whatever's going on, if you're sharing and you're letting people in, y'all can help each other. You can share with each other. You can meet whatever needs. But then you can also have small groups that go out and meet the needs of people in our community. Like that's what that small group is for. And so then you have community that happens organically. Ecclesiastes 4:9 through 12 emphasizes the strength of benefits of community, stating that two are better than one for mutual support, warmth, and defense, yielding better results from labor. With the imagery of a threefold cord being unbreakable. So that's when we come together and we work together. And then you've heard the saying before, many hands make light work. And when they refer to that as doing work. But I just thought, many people sharing each other's burdens, I think that would lighten the burden off of an individual if we all share in each other's pain. So we all need those kind of friends. Iron sharpens iron. I say it all the time. Iron sharpens iron. We need those kind of friends. Well, that's Proverbs 27:17. We didn't make that up. And then we also have to lock our shields of faith together. And that's referenced in Ephesians 6:16. So small groups are where we can create those genuine friendships and establish real community. Sunday mornings are powerful and necessary, but smaller, safe spaces often allow for deeper connection and where growth can really happen. Now, Jesus modeled this perfectly, as he does everything, which is why some of us are doing Practicing the Way, because we want to look like Jesus and be like Jesus and do what Jesus did. And so I think that's so important. And so he modeled for us to all follow. So he had the crowds, the large gatherings. Jesus was in the synagogue, and he, on every Sabbath, he was praying, reading the scriptures, worshiping. That's what we do here. When we have church, we're all here together, and we meet out in the foyer, and we just fellowship all together, just like they did. Well, then he had his disciples and a few others, and so those were small groups. And that's where they even would share a meal. And I think that's really important. If you can share a meal together, I know in my group, we always eat, and just seeing everybody connect. You connect best over food. Didn't we just connect over food? It always makes everything better. And so then Jesus also had his smaller circle, his three, Peter, James, and John. And so for me, I think that we need our small group, but then we also need those few close friends, and you'll find them in your small groups. I know I did. I found my three closest friends through small groups, and I think it's so necessary. We've just got to have that, because it's hard. It's hard to walk this life alone, and I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of walking this life alone. So I started joining small groups. Amen. Yes, amen. And you don't have to share everything with everyone. I learned that the hard way. But you do need to share it with someone. And we all need someone instead of keeping it all bottled up. Because when you do that, it rots you out from the inside out. So it's just awful. I did that for years. So, it just destroyed my health, always keeping everything bottled up. And Pastor Chris Hodges, I'll never forget this, he said in one of his sermons, there should not be anything in your life that somebody doesn't know. Because if there's something that nobody knows, then that's when the enemy is going to really get you. And you've got to let light come into that darkness. So small groups is great to have people praying for you, listening, sharing your needs, but that's when you need, but your close friends will be the ones that will, they'll know the details of what's going on in your life. So, we all do this in our small groups. We're all praying for each other. We're all there for each other. But then there'll always be those few that will know a lot more details. And that's important. I know for me, I have my small group, my little cheerleading section right there. I have my small group of women that I love dearly. We pray for each other, and if anybody needs anything. But then I also have my 3 closest friends. They keep me accountable, and that's what's important about those close friends, is to keep you accountable. They call me out and they call me up, and I don't know what I would do without them. And God strategically placed them in my life at the right time. So I recently read a book about these 3 pillars of friendship: proximity, timing, and energy. Proximity is simply being around the same people regularly, which would be kind of like our small groups. Timing is being in the same season of life. So maybe you're a single mom, maybe you're a single lady, maybe you're married with little ones, whatever season that you're in, that's the timing. Energy is that natural connection you feel with someone. So you know how well you're connecting. And so when all three line up, that's when friendships form. And so when one or more of those shift, it can change that relationship. And that doesn't mean anybody did anything wrong. You just may have changed your season. And this really helped me because, I look at my friendships now and the friendships that I've had in the past, and sometimes you wonder why friendships dissolved or why certain things happen, and you can start wondering, like I look back and think, what happened to the friends that I had before? But just time and space and the different things, changed that. It doesn't mean that anybody did anything wrong, it just changed. And then another thing that she said in this book was, but you know what? Friendships sometimes are just on pause, and you can just pick up the phone and catch right back up with that person. And so some friendships are for a reason, some for a season, and some for a lifetime. And Jesus didn't do life with everyone the same way, so neither should we. Dallas Willard referenced how coals in a fire stay hot when kept together, but burn out when separated. Individuals grow spiritually and maintain the fire of God's presence when they're united with others. So I think that's really important. We need to keep the fire going. All right, so community can also grow us into people who can serve others well. So sometimes healing doesn't come from focusing on ourselves. It comes from letting God use us. So in October 2016, so on my back porch, I don't live there anymore, but in the place that I lived, on my back porch, it was my place of solitude. Like, that is where I went to just meet with the Lord. I would pray out there, I'd read the word out there, I'd worship out there. I loved my back porch. I have not been able to replicate that, but I loved this space. It was my solitude. And one day, the Lord, I heard this voice. I have to do it from this direction. I heard this voice behind me that said, "Take in women and children." It was so loud. And I turned around. I was like, what was that? Because that never happened before. And then I heard it again. "Take in women and children." And I was like, oh, hold on. I mean, back then, I didn't care anything about women. Sorry, didn't care about them at all. We had no desire to help women ever. And I know it's terrible. All of my friends were serving and in all ministry, and I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And because I was still in my pain, and I was still hurting and broken. And so right after that, I started remembering some sermons that I had been hearing for about 6 months that said, serve from your brokenness, serve from your brokenness. And I thought, what in the heck? Serve from your brokenness. And so at that moment, I mean, you know how when the Lord tells you something, there's a whole bunch of things that happen all at one time, but it takes you so long to explain it, but then yet it happened in just a split second. Well, that's what had happened, because it was the voice, and then the thoughts of all this, the serve from your brokenness, and so then I said, I don't know. This was a complete transformation of my heart. It completely changed from a heart of stone to a heart of flesh, just like that. And I cried and cried and cried. I literally could not tell anybody what the Lord had said because I without crying. And so that was on a Tuesday, and I said to the Lord, I immediately said to him, it would be an honor to serve you in that way for the rest of my life. I mean, that is not something that I would have said, but I did. I immediately changed, and I was like, my life will be to serve women for the rest of my life. And so as soon as I gave God the yes, he immediately showed me a lady that I knew's face that helps women in our community. And that was on a Tuesday. I texted her immediately, and I was like, okay, God just said we got to meet. And she's like, okay, let's meet Friday. And so we met on that Friday. By that Sunday, a lady with her 3 children had moved in with me and stayed with me for a year. And I mean, that was all God. That was absolutely not me at all. But it was great, because what it did for me is it brought healing to my life while serving somebody else in their pain. And that's just how God works, you know? He uses us for his good and I mean for our good and his glory. And so then for about 6 months, well no, I just said that. I just lost my place. All right, so here are a few things I hope you carry away with you. You are not alone. God never designed you to carry life by yourself. He placed people around you on purpose. Healing is possible when you let people in. No matter how long you've been hurting or how complicated life feels, God still is able to bring healing, and that can happen through community. You belong in community. There is a place for you here, not because you have it all together, but because you are his beloved daughter. I just read that book by Francis Chan, Beloved, and if you haven't read that, you should read it. That was Be Loved. I just love that. And your life has purpose. Even the parts of your story you wish were different can be used by God to bring hope to someone else. You do not have to be healed to serve. Serving is often part of the healing. And when you say yes to God, he can do incredible things with your obedience. It can change lives, not just one life, but for generations to come. And serving isn't about being seen, it's about obedience and allowing God to use the ordinary for something extraordinary. So serving can look like just sitting with someone and listening well. Sometimes it's simply creating a safe place where someone feels comfortable enough to let others into their world, their pain, their trauma, and experience grace, truth, forgiveness, and healing. God has created each of us uniquely with gifts, experiences, stories to further his kingdom here on earth. And often God uses the very things we've walked through to help someone else take their next step forward. See, God doesn't waste anything, and that's another good book, Nothing Wasted by Casey Van Norman. But anyway, so if you haven't read that one, that one's super good too. Everything you have been through in your life, God is going to turn it around for your good and his glory. And your testimony is God is going to use to help someone go through a similar situation. So if you are currently walking through a very difficult season, there are women here, I am sure, that have already walked through a similar season, and they would love to walk with you through it. But you have to take the first step towards community and letting people into your world. And so even if you're in community in your small group and think you're in community in your small group, you may not be if you're not willing to open up and share, because you're just sitting there isolated in a group of people. That's exactly what I did for a really long time. And the pain that I walked through was given purpose, as God prepared me to walk alongside other women facing similar trials. So Scripture reminds us of this in 1 Peter 4:10. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace. And I look at gifts as also being things that you've gone through. That is a gift that you have to give somebody else of whatever you've been through. So Proverbs 3:27 tells us, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to act. So it's in your power to share your story with other women so that they can grow and walk with you through that. So John Mark Comer said, you think you're here to help others, but you quickly realize you're the one being helped. You're being set free of your ego, your entitlement, your self-obsession. When you serve in the way of Jesus, the lines blur between servant and served, giver and recipient. Both give, both receive. Dignity is restored in one and freedom won in the other. So before we move into our table talk questions that are at your table, here's my encouragement for you. Join a small group if you haven't already. Pick a day and pick a time that works for you, that you can stay consistent and committed to it. If you just pick one that you think, oh, that sounds nice, but it doesn't really work in your schedule, you're not going to keep going. So find one that works for you and trust God with the people that He brings to the group. If you're already in a group, that's great. Consider sharing your testimony or the hard parts of your life. You never know how God will connect you with people, because they have what you need and you have what they need. And our church always says that for everything. And I think it's so vitally important, because your story is going to impact somebody else's life, just like their story could impact your life if you'll just share. Next, serve from where you are. Serve from your pain or from already have been healed. You don't need to be healed, you just need to be willing. Even today, I'm still walking through ongoing pain with my adult children, but I'm not carrying it alone, and I thank God that I don't have to. If you've been looking for a group that doesn't exist yet, well, maybe it's time for you to start that group. Amen. Because we need some more groups. We need some more groups. All right, so those of you who know me know I'm all about notes, taking notes, reflecting, all the good stuff, right? So on your table, there's 3 of them on each table, is a QR code. You can scan that. It's going to take you where you're going to just put your name and your email, and then you are going to get an email from me that has all the notes from tonight. It's going to have scriptures, it's going to have the table talk questions, and it's going to have some of the books that I referenced. It will also send you an email when, hopefully this year, my new book, The Truth Behind Closed Doors, is released. So there you go. There's a whole lot of stepping outside of my comfort zone. So anyway, God's just been stretching me in so many areas of my life. I mean, anyway, so it's good. I've been working on the book for quite a while, so it should be done this year. So you'll just get an email. So as you discuss the table talk questions, you'll notice they are simply an extension of what we've been talking about tonight: community and serving. As we head into table time, I want you to hold this question in your heart. What might God want to do in me and through me if I take the first step and let people into my life? So I'll close with this final story. So the lady that I told you about that I took in with the 3 children, which was almost 10 years ago, I've kept in contact with her a lot over the years. And last year she called me, and as we talked, I realized something was completely changed in her. She had fully surrendered her life to the Lord. She was active in her church. Every time the doors were open, she was there. She was also in the choir, worshiping, growing in freedom. And because of that transformation God had done in her life, it was now going to help her children. And so this is a generational thing that happens when you find healing, your children can find healing. And so, of course, that just completely overwhelmed my heart with so much joy. But it reminds me of this truth. When you step out in faith, when you walk in community, and when you serve from your brokenness, God doesn't just heal you, He uses it to impact generations to come. So now we're going to head into our table talk time. So you have a leader at each of your tables. And if you don't know who that is, hopefully she will say that she's the leader of your table. But anyway, so y'all just sit around your table and chit chat and go through the questions. If you want to get more food or whatever you want to do, feel free to do that as well.